at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. I'm Anthony Robertson, and here with me is the Horst, Alex Horst. What's up, Horsty?
What's going on, everybody? Glad to be here for another exciting episode.
Also here, Alex Asenia. How's it going, Alex?
Doing well, man. Super excited to be here. Super excited for us to all be together. Let's get into this.
Make sure to click the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time we post a video. Like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Today's going to be a fun episode. Today, the block is hot. We're going to be talking about the Hotboyzz, 49ers linebackers, and we're going to kick it off with the big guy in the middle. So, Horst, how good is Fred Warner?
Fred Warner, to me, is the best middle linebacker in the game right now. I know not everyone rates it that way, but there is no part of the game that Fred Warner struggles with when you watch his film. He's probably got the best awareness in the game right now with Kuechly gone. He's too athletic and too fast for guys to block. He's so smart that he almost always knows where the ball's going to be, so the linemen can't get their hands on him. He came out of BYU as a hybrid guy. He played both strong safety and linebacker. When the Niners picked him, I know myself and you, Ant, were very excited once we watched his film. And I don't think either of us predicted he'd be quite this good, but he's become a fantastic player. He can cover anyone on the field. He can cover any tight end, fullback, or running back. And he could even give some people problems in the slot, although that wouldn't be the Niners' ideal matchup. I think one of the plays that really shows how big Warner is to this defense is that interception against the Rams when everything was going poorly. Fred Warner made the big play, picked off the short route, took it back to the house for a touchdown, totally turned that game around. He had the fourth most pass breakups among linebackers in the league this year, and he also... the best quote I heard about him online was that he is the best of a new generation of linebackers. By new generation, they mean the types like him, Jalen Smith, the smaller, more athletic guys as opposed to the big bruising guys of years past. Fred Warner, I wouldn't trade him for any player in football or for any linebacker in football. And the scary thing is he's only 23 years old.
Yeah, big time. He is a fantastic player, and for the age thing for me is the big part, because at 23, he's nowhere near close to what his prime is going to be. Averaged just under 90 tackles per season his first 2 years in the league. He's increased his sack total from this past year. He had 0 in his first year as a rookie. He had 3 this last season in 2019. And his best statistical games, every single one of his best statistical games in the regular season this year, big opponents. Green Bay, Baltimore, second game in Seattle. The first game against Seattle. Absolutely incredible player for his age. PFF has him ranked at around a 69, which for a 30-year player is pretty darn good. I think the big thing for him is I think the knock that everyone talks about a lot and you hear about a lot is the missed tackles. I think that's probably the biggest weakness of his game. But when you're making the jump from college to pro football, when you're playing against guys who on an everyday basis typically aren't, you're not always seeing the best talent in the world. You're seeing highly talented guys at the Division I level, but not every guy is going to be an elite level guy. There's a little bit of a transitional period, I believe, that there needs to have there, especially at the linebacker position. And I think he's getting there. He is getting better. He has improved in that aspect. As Horst had mentioned, the pass coverage for him for a third-year guy is incredible. And the types of positions and the types of players he can cover, it's absolutely insane. I do agree. I think he emerged this last season as kind of the lead guy in the linebacking core, and the fact that he's 23 and doing that is insane. So yeah, this guy's huge. He's going to be vastly important going forward. And as Horst said, I don't think there's really anybody right now at the linebacking position in football I'd rather have based on the age, the skill sets, and all the things he can do, and all the things he can still become.
I love this guy because he made me forget about Reuben Foster. And I really needed somebody to make me forget because he's everything that I thought Reuben Foster could be coming out of Alabama. So when Fred Warner's out there, I just feel like we got the best player in the middle. And that's important. I mean, from day one, he's out there. He's calling the defense. He's going out there making all the calls and just stepping up as a big-time leader. And I think seen that take a big step. Another thing, he's a great blitzer, which I love. But he's also, like you guys said, he's so good in coverage. And this year there was a huge improvement that I think catapulted him kind of to the top of what the NFL's great linebackers can do. And I think a lot of that's his safety background. He's so good at playing in space. He doesn't get fooled by, easy combination routes. He's on those things. So I think there are some things that Warner needs to work on, but I do think that he's definitely in 2 years showed that he's one of the best players in the league. And the things that he really needs to work on moving forward is, he needs to take better angles to make his tackles. I think that's one thing that we saw is that sometimes he takes bad angles and doesn't make plays. And also, his stops against the run dropped this year. He went from 9th to 17th. So he definitely needs to step up. And I'm sure it was a little bit different adding Kwon Alexander and Dre Greenlaw. But I think that moving forward, he can improve on those things. And I think he knows he needs to improve on those things. So as long as he keeps moving forward with those, I think he will be, one of the elite guys in the league. So, Alex, that begs the question, where do you think he ranks among the best NFL linebackers?
Probably. I mean, the big thing, the big thing for me is I feel this is when you're ranking players, the thing that most people should be taking into account and into consideration is what have you done for me lately, not what you have done. And a lot of the ranking stuff that I've seen has put a lot of emphasis on what linebackers and guys in the league have done for the past 7 or 8 seasons, and not so much on the things they have done this last year. They look at one drop in statistical production and they'll say, okay, well, that's not good. They've done a lot of good for the previous 7 years, and I think there needs to be more of a balance and weight of what are you doing currently, where are you at in your career. Guys in their mid-30s or early 30s who are having their first down year, while that's not a good thing, but also not necessarily a sign of decline. Football is a physical sport. It's demanding. It takes a toll on the body. So when you're getting into your early 30s, mid-30s, and you're starting to have a down year or you have your first big down year, that's not typically a sign of a lapse or like a bad year. It's usually the sign of decline, like twilight's coming and you're about ready to get up on that horse and ride off into the sunset. This kid's 23.
Right.
And he hasn't had a worse season. His seasons have progressively gotten better each and every game to the point that, he was leading one of the best defenses in the league into a Super Bowl. That's usually a sign of great things to come, not, he's 23 and he has, a couple of issues. Of course he has a couple of issues. He's a young guy. He's still learning to transition to the league. Give him a couple more years, and I don't think anybody's going to be talking about him being anything other than a top 3 linebacker in the league. I'd say comfortably right now, though, he's probably in my top 15 easily.
I think he's a top 10 guy in the league. CBS Sports ranked him number 9 coming into this season, and I think he might even deserve to be a little higher than this. But yeah, I think, like you said, he's within the next 2-3 years, he's probably going to be in the top 2 or 3. He's got a crazy amount of potential. I'm still just a big fan. That's all. Like you said, there's a couple things he needs to clear up with the bad angles, missed tackles. But for him to be this far along as a third-round pick at 23 years old, I think he's got a lot of potential. I think he could end up the best middle linebacker in the league.
I think a lot of it, too, has to do with what we believe are the most important things. And I think when you worry about things that can't be fixed, like mental parts of the game, right? Things like not recognizing different offensive sets or not being in the right spot in coverage, that's all mindset. That's all things that you need to remember with your mind. And those he all executes at a high level. So anything physically that you need to get better at, he can do. Right? He can get better at tackling. He can get better at taking angles. He can get better at those type of things. So I think really, to me, he's a top 5 guy. I think right now he's sitting in the top 10 just because he needs to clean these things up. but I do think that he'll be a top 5 guy by the end of the year and maybe mentioned in the top 3 because even the guys ahead of him aren't ahead of him by a lot. And I think all around, if you're talking about an all-around player, he does everything well. And I think once he cleans up the little things, he'll be really great. And, you know, when you're talking about Fred Warner and kind of the attitude that goes with Fred Warner and the attitude of the defense, you know, I want to talk about some of his running mates since we're talking about the Hotboyzz. Alex, what do you think about Kwon Alexander?
Great name, first off. What a name. Especially that last name, that Alexander. It's wonderful. We got a couple Alexanders in this room, and I think he's the best of the two of us. Wouldn't you agree, Horst?
Disagree.
Dang. All right. Well, I was hoping to get one agreement there. But no, he's. I think of the 3, he's probably the guy that there's the most question marks about, and obviously because of the injury stuff, especially the last few years, he hasn't really been able to stay on the field as much as I know we would like him to have been last year, and I know he wanted to be last year. But the big thing with him is the grit and the toughness, the things he's had to overcome and deal with in his career. And have to do all of it and overcome it all at a young age. He's 25, going to be 26 this year. He's only been in the league, 4? I think this is year 5, isn't that? Is it not? I believe it's 5. He's had 2 pretty big major injuries that he has come back from and bounced back from and played at a high level because of it. And I mean, 8 games this year because of the pec injury. He only played in about 54% of the snaps once he was back in the playoff run. And so a lot of the production numbers, it's really hard to judge him based on what he was doing at the time because he was limited in terms of how much he was playing and how much of that was rust and how much of that was him still dealing with the fact that he was playing through a torn pec injury. But still, through 8 games, 22 tackles. And the big thing for me is the QB rating that he allowed, which was 56.4, I believe. So he's wonderful in the pass. They talked a lot about missed tackles and a lot of the stuff that I was reading for him this past season. But again, hard to judge that when the guy's out there playing with a pec injury and every single one of those tackles has got to be absolutely painful and distraught. Every time he makes a hit or tries to lay a hit on somebody, it's got to be the most uncomfortable thing in the world to be doing that with that kind of injury. So I'm not willing to write him off as a guy who isn't one of the more talented guys in the linebacking core. I think he is. I think the big thing is just keeping him on the field.
The Pro Football Focus rated Kwon the 48th best linebacker in football last year. And I think anyone that watches multiple 49er games can tell you that that's not really the case. That if you're talking about the eye test, Kwon's a big-time player. He's all over the field. Like you said, his passer rating against is in the 50s. And there were 2 Kwons last year. One was the first 8 games. They were 8-0 when he played. After that, when he came back, while his effort and all that was commendable, impressive to come back from that injury, he was clearly not the same player. His tackling really suffered. He was still in the right spot, but he missed a lot of plays he would make before that injury. I still commend him. I think it was incredible that he was able to do that for his teammates. Come back in 6-7 weeks from a torn pectoral muscle. That's incredible. And like you said, he must have been playing through an unbelievable amount of pain. But so the first 8 weeks, I think we're talking a top 20, 25 linebacker. He has, as a player, he has his faults, but he's high energy, high effort, and he's another smart guy, and he's another guy that's really good in coverage. And I think if we get him healthy for a whole year, he'll definitely improve on that 48th ranking.
He's exactly like Fred Warner. I mean, exactly. Struggles a little bit with the tackling, great in coverage, probably one of the best cover linebackers in the league. So when they're on the field together, I mean, it's definitely one of the best tandems as far as against the pass. So their struggle is against the run, which we saw last year. The 49ers kind of had struggles against the run. Both interior defensive line and linebackers made sometimes, giving up more yards than they probably should have. But I think that Kwon Alexander stats are a little skewed because, like you said, Alex, he comes back from the injury, so the numbers aren't going to make sense because he actually rated out to being dead last in tackles last year. which is, not good. But I think that number is going to improve this year. I can't see any reason why he's not going to get better. The one thing that he brings that we haven't seen from the other linebackers is turnovers. He has 6 career interceptions and also a couple fumbles. So that's a guy that can create problems, make things happen on the field, which Fred Warner doesn't always get done. Last year, we seen him have the interception, like Horst said, and Alex said he had the interception, and then also the interception in the Super Bowl where he jumps in front of Tyreek Hill and makes a pick. So you're seeing the growth, and I think he's only going to get better, and I think Kwon adds to that. Kwon is definitely a good person to have on the team. So then, that kind of begs the question, Horst, what kind of intangibles, what kind of things does Kwon Alexander bring to the linebacking core?
Well, he's the guy that coined the term Hotboyzz. He brings the energy. He brings the noise.
The noise.
The noise. He's all over the field. He fires the whole team up. You see him on the sideline getting everyone hyped up. He's definitely the defense's hype man. He still has the all-time best quote when they asked him, when DeMarcus Lawrence from the Cowboys said he stole the name Hotboyzz from them, and his response was, "Y'all was mediocre."
He ain't lying.
So Kwon, in that regard, is one of the top guys in the game as far as intangibles, because he's fired up. That guy's never gotten out of bed on bad footing. He's always ready to go, always ready to rock. When he was on the sidelines in a sling, he was acting like that when he was hurt. And the other thing about him was, him playing through his brother. I think his brother got murdered on Friday, right?
Right.
On a Friday when he was on the Buccaneers, came out for against the Falcons and was the defensive player of the week that week. And that award was not just handed to him because his brother died. He legitimately deserved it. He made plays all over the field. And that's the first time I actually knew who Kwon Alexander was when that happened. And then, lo and behold, 2 years later, we sign him, and he's bringing the same type of thing to San Francisco. And he brings those kind of things that can't be measured in statistics, can't be measured in a scorebook. He just brings the fire. He brings the intensity.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that, because that was the first time that I had ever heard of him, was that game. And he has always been that guy, the hype guy. He's almost like the identity of that linebacking core. He's the guy that kind of has built up this idea of what they are, and that they're the ones that bring the heat, essentially. That's why they're the Hotboyzz. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that set the tone. They're the ones that get the job done. They're the ones who set the pace for the defense in terms of we're going to come out and hit you in the mouth, put pressure. You're not going to get the things that you want. You're going to take what we give you. He is just, like you said, the hype man is the best word for it. And the big thing for me is, despite the fact that he finished dead last in missed tackles, Pro Football Focus still had him ranked at a 61, and he only played 8 games. I mean, the dude is just there's nothing on him but for his motor other than go full speed, and that's what those other young guys need with someone like that who knows nothing else other than pedal to the metal, full throttle. Let's get this thing done, and let's have fun doing it. They're going to be extremely dangerous to deal with, that trio for hopefully the next 5 or 6 years.
Drip, 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 drip. This dude is straight dripping swagoo all day long. From the moment he steps on the field until the moment he gets in his car, he brings the intensity of every single player around him up. He brings guys out of their shell. He makes people excited to play football. And when you're excited to play football, you play better football. That was the thing, is you can get too mentally into it and forget to have fun. And when you don't have fun, the stress of the league kind of weighs on you. The stress of the game times weigh on you. And I think that he keeps it loose. He keeps it fun. And that's the kind of swag you saw with the defense last year. And I think that can be really attributed to Kwon Alexander. And I think also the turnovers. It's no coincidence that he comes in the first year. They go from 2 turnovers to, 33 turnovers? It's ridiculous how good he is as far as just, he makes people go after the ball. Look at Fred Warner. He carries the ball everywhere he goes now because Kwon Alexander told him to carry a ball, and he carries the ball. So it's about getting that ball, because the ball is the most important thing in the game. And ever since they started doing that, I think it's really taken a life of its own. I think the Hotboyzz has taken a life of its own. It's created a different type of defensive atmosphere. Now Salah's intensity is showing through his players. I think that he was the perfect guy to kind of fit into that, and I think that's why John Lynch targeted him when he got him. So, Horace, let's talk about another hot boy. Let's talk about Dre Greenlaw. How good is Dre Greenlaw?
I just remember when we watched the first preseason game last year. Obviously, I knew the name of Dre Greenlaw. He was a guy they drafted in the 5th round. Didn't know much about him other than that. We both were watching that game, texting each other back and forth. And I think at some point we both texted each other, who the heck is 57? Because that guy was everywhere in the second half of that first game. And then all 4 preseason games, it was like Greenlaw, every time he came in, made 2 or 3 plays that made you take notice and realize that he was going to be something special. Now, I didn't think he would be as good a player right away as he was. When he stepped into the lineup, he went from first playing about 30% of the plays, but past the halfway mark of the season, even before Kwon was hurt, he was playing 50% of the plays. And then obviously when Kwon went down, he played even more than that. He took a lot of his reps at weak side linebacker. For a rookie, he's pretty solid all around the board. I mean, they had him on, PFF had him on their all-rookie first team above Devin Bush, who was a first-round pick, and Pittsburgh's happy with him. So I think that should tell you how good of a year Dre Greenlaw had as a rookie. No complaints here with that 5th-round pick. That seems to be a good round for the Shanahan-Lynch combination.
Definitely is a good round for him. 68 tackle rookie campaign is pretty crazy considering it was only 11 games, I think, in which he played and or started in. The impressive thing, or the part about his game that was the kind of standout for me, was the first game after Kwon went down and how solid he was, top to bottom, in his performance. We didn't get beat much in pass coverage. I think he had a pass defense in that game. Where I was sitting there, and I remember talking to you when Kwon went down, and it was like, yeah, I'm worried about the D. Like, I was worried, right. And the first name that you put out was Dre Greenlaw, and you said, I think we're not as bad off as you think we're gonna be. That kid is pretty impressive. I think, and the pass rush is gonna be able to help him, especially hide some of the things that maybe he's weak in early in the season. And he really wasn't weak at all in the pass coverage. He ranked as one of the top, I think, 2 or 3 guys in missed tackles. He only missed 2.1% of his attempts all season, which is insane for a rookie. And if he can just continue to grow and develop with that group of guys, he's not going to be someone who we're going to be leaning heavy on in terms of being the guy. He's got 2 guys above him who have either been the guy, and Kwon was in Tampa for a while before the big injury, and we're still looking for him to be the guy here, as well as Fred Warner, who stepped up and shown that he can be the guy. Dre doesn't have to be the guy right now. He just has to be, like you said, another one of the hot boys, which he's already shown he can do.
So yeah, Dre Greenlaw, he had to start 11 games last year. He had to play 71% of the snaps, and he worked all through training camp and through the beginning of the season at the Sam Linebacker, strong linebacker, and once Kwon got hurt, then he had to shift over. And that was a big adjustment. He even admitted he didn't really know everything that was happening. Even at the end of the year, he wasn't very, confident on all the calls and everything he was supposed to do. So for him to play as well as he did, not really understanding everything that was going on, I think just goes to show how great of a talent he is. The fact that he only missed 2.1% of tackles is unbelievable compared to the other 2 who have higher rates. It just shows that he's a, for sure tackler. He's going to make every play that he possibly can. I think one of the interesting things, I wasn't really considering him a great cover guy when he came in and he was drafted. I don't think anyone really thought that's what we were looking at. But then when you look at the numbers, he stepped right in and he has a coverage grade of 72.5, which is outstanding. Fred Warner is at 74.8, and then Kwon Alexander at 79.7. So they're literally 3 of the best cover guys in the league. And he's just making plays. And Dre's a very confident guy, but he's not over the top exuberant like the other guys are. He doesn't rock weirdly like Horse does. He's just he's a fun guy to watch, and I think he's a good player. I'm definitely curious to see how good he can be. Alex, do you think he could be a top linebacker in the league?
I do. I do. I think it's going to take probably a little bit more time, just because he's going to be adjusting back and forth with positioning. I don't know what they're going to do with the three of them in terms of where they're going to put them all, like where they're going to play them. But I think in time, probably about another 2 to 3 years, that he can be a guy similar to Greenlaw, to why did I just blank there?
Warner.
That you're going to have a conversation of him probably being in the top 5. I don't know about top 3 right away, but in the top 5. The tackling percentage, the coverage percentage as a rookie. Some people want to say that that's maybe contributed to the great D line and the fact that he's got guys like Kwon and Fred Warner. But that's the situation he's in, and you can only kind of grade him out and view him based on the environment he's playing in. You can't play fantasy pretend land in which he's the only linebacker on a terrible team, and what would happen if you plugged him in here and you don't know. This is what he is. This is what he's doing, and if it continues, and there's no sign that that's not going to happen. All 3 of the linebackers that we got right now have improved. Well, the two young guys have shown drastic improvement from their first time till now. And Kwon, despite the fact that he only played a few games, when, like Horse said, when he was in, eye test wise, he checks all the boxes, especially in this defense with Saleh. So I don't believe we have anything else here other than potentially, maybe eventually, one of the greatest 49er linebacking core that has ever existed in the franchise's history. It's going to take a couple of years, I think. These young guys got to get a little bit more experience into their belt. But if in a couple of years we're talking a couple Super Bowls with this defense leading the way and this linebacking core pushing the tempo and the team forward, I think there's a legitimate argument to be made there.
With Greenlaw, first of all, he's already cemented himself in 49er lore with the hit on Hollister at the goal line to clinch the division. We all hate Seattle. So
take that, Carol. You gum chewing man.
The only thing that would have made it better is if he hit Pete Carroll, who flew into Russell Wilson. And so I think, like Alex said, this group's got nowhere to go but up. I think that Greenlaw has definitely got the potential to be a several-time Pro Bowl type guy. This linebacking core, I think, is one of the better cores in the league. And it's kind of funny how their years with Harbaugh were led by a big-time linebacker play with Willis, Bowman, Alden Smith, and Ahmad Brooks, and come back around. Obviously, their defensive line is great, but how they were able to get another set of great linebackers, I think if you can ask some fans of long-suffering teams, that doesn't always come around that quickly. So they've done a great job getting that linebacker core back together after Willis and Bowman were forced to retire. So I think the future's only going up with these guys. I think they're going to be a great group.
I think the fact that he played so well in his first year, I think anytime that happens, and he played in the biggest games, and it didn't seem like the biggest games were too much for him. It seemed like he was real comfortable. He made plays. He had the interception in overtime against Seattle, which at the time I thought was going to get the 49ers the win. Who knew that we had, the hooker that was the kicker.
What was that guy's name?
I don't even know what his name was.
He fades into irrelevance. He doesn't exist anymore.
I hope he doesn't know his name.
Yeah, wasn't it like Parky or something? I don't know.
Every Chicago fan right now is crying.
Right, it's Ray Finkel. That's what it was. But that was. I mean, he was in a tough spot. But shoot, I really thought that Dre Greenlaw had won that game for us with that interception. It was a great play, undercut the route, and dropped in his zone. But when you look at Dre Greenlaw, you really see somebody that, as soon as he gets the mental part of it all the way down, I think he'll play faster, which is going to be important because I think the 49ers linebacking core is the fastest in the NFL probably, and just the way they fly around. I think it is, like you said, going to show big time that Lynch, and the scouts of the 49ers, they can draft linebackers. They've hit, in back-to-back years with big-time linebackers. So it is going to be curious to see who starts where. So, Horse, who is going to start at will linebacker this year? Is it going to be Kwon Alexander or is it going to be Dre Greenlaw?
I think it's going to be Kwon. I don't think Dre's quite ready to play over him yet at that spot. I do think he'll get a little bit more of the reps than he was getting at the start of last year. I think he'll get repped in a little more than that, but I still think Kwon is definitely our best bet there, barring injury, but now if that does happen, we know we have someone behind him who can make plays, so that's really important.
Yeah, I'm in that camp too. I believe Kwon Alexander is the guy who's going to start at the will linebacker position. I don't think it's going to be Greenlaw. I think Kwon has earned that spot. He's shown that he can play in that spot. We brought him in to play that spot. That's the whole reason we signed him and brought him in the first place. The big thing is just going to be, can he stay healthy? But like you said, Horse, if he isn't and something does happen, God forbid, Greenlaw can step in and fill that role in, and has shown that he can fill that role in and play it at a high level. But I think Greenlaw's strengths as a run stopper fit better for that Sam position in Salah's defense. And so I believe we're going to see a lot more of that with Alexander at the will and Greenlaw at the Sam.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more even this year. I think that Kwon is going to start, and I think he's going to play a lot of the third and longs in the nickel, and I think that Dre Greenlaw is going to play more to the third and short to help stop the run. I think he's a little bit better in that type of situation. You know, he's a better tackler. So I think it's going to be more balanced this year, but they're both good, really good against the pass. I just think that Kwon is just a little bit better than he is. So Fred Warner will never come off the field, and then I think the other two will kind of split time. But I do expect Kwon to play more than I expect Dre Greenlaw to play. I think money has a lot to do with that. They're still paying the man a lot of money to be out on the field. Plus, he brings the intangibles we've already talked about. He's, brings all the energy. You can't have that on the sideline. You gotta have that on the field, so that way he can help, keep the energy up and have these guys making plays, especially on third and long, where you need that pass rush, you need that secondary to be hyped and playing how they're supposed to be playing. So, Alex, what 49ers linebackers that we haven't talked about sticks out to you?
I'm going to go with the guy they just signed out of Arizona, Joe Walker. He's a 7th-round pick. He was on the practice squad with the Philadelphia Eagles. And the big thing is he got signed last year by Arizona off the practice squad from the Eagles, and he did an amazing job, filled in for the first-round pick that Arizona had that was kind of fizzling out, wasn't really playing well. They weren't very happy with his production. They benched him. They promoted Walker to the starting job, and 60-plus tackles last year, had a very high tackle percent rate, was one of the higher guys in the league, actually. And I think he's just a guy who's going to be able to come in and kind of balances the linebacking core out. They got 3 young guys who all cover well in space, and he is going to be a guy who comes in, and we're not really asking him to do much coverage. Just come in, and can he be a guy who can stop the run, make tackles, make plays, cover guys out of the backfield, maybe. A thumper, yeah. Another guy who can lay the heat, bring the heat for the Hotboyzz. He'll be the fourth hot. No, we're not gonna do 4th Hotboyzz. Okay, the noise. But yeah, no, Joe Walker. They went out and signed him. He did a really great job against NFC West opponents, and Shanahan got to see him a lot, and Salah got to see him a lot, and I think it's just for them it was a good fit.
All right, I'm going to go with Azeez Al-Shaair. Azeez was on the team last year as an undrafted rookie. He really popped during the preseason. He made a lot of good plays. He was fun to watch. He ended up making the team as an undrafted rookie. He played a lot on special teams. He played in all 16 regular season games. He also got a little bit of run when Kwon went down and they were in 3 linebacker sets, and he didn't look out of place. And then he also has a fantastic story to go with this, is that his family became homeless after his sophomore year of high school. He rode a bus 2 hours each way to school and back. He got a scholarship to Florida Atlantic University. He became a 3-year starter or 4-year starter there, led them in tackles his first 3 years, was a Butkus Award nominee going into his senior year, and he tore his ACL about 4 weeks into the season, So he went undrafted, and he had to work his backside off to make the Niners team, which he did. And so going along with how he played last year in that story, I think he's going to continue to put in that work, and I think he's going to become a pretty good player.
I went with undrafted free agent Jonas Griffith. He's from Indiana State. He's 6'3". He's 250 pounds. He had in his 4-year college career, he had 382 tackles, 14 sacks, and 3 interceptions. He can play both inside and outside linebacker. And when the 49ers play the 3-stack linebacker is perfect for him. He's a tackling machine. He can play the run really well. So I think where he'll have to make his mark is on special teams. But I think there's going to be a huge disadvantage for him this year because he's not going to have any preseason games to play. So I'm not sure if he'll actually make the team. I think he's probably a possibility as a practice squad player now. Originally, I was thinking he was going to beat out some guys, but I just don't know with the new changes to the offseason, the training camp, and no preseason games. So, but I think he's someone to watch because I'm curious to see how he looks as far as how he blitzes and how he plays the position and how he measures up to the other guys. I mean, he's definitely got good guys to learn from, and I think if he can step up real fast, he could be someone that could be a big-time player for the 49ers in the future. Horst, do the 49ers have the best linebacking core?
I think they're darn close if they don't have it.
Darn close?
There's no one's core that I would sit there and look at and say, oh, man, I'd rather have those guys than the group they have. I think there's about 4 or 5 teams sitting there that can lay claim to that title, but I think they're as good as anyone in the league. And for the system they run, I think their linebacking core is perfect. I think Seattle, people still rank them number 1, number 2. I think Seattle's core is getting old. They're both their main guys, Wagner and
KJ Wright.
KJ Wright took a clear step back last year. So they're stepping back while the Niners core is moving forward. I think they're going to pass them this year. Like I said, I don't know where I would rank them, but I wouldn't rather have a different group for the defense they run.
Yeah, this is where I mentioned this earlier. You got to rankings have to be a combination of what have you done for us lately and what have you done. But people have to stop ranking what you have done as the end-all, be-all sort of the top echelon of how you look at a group or a core or an individual and be like, yeah, it's top of his game. The Lakers made this mistake with Kobe Bryant at the end of his career. He was not worth the money that he was making at the time. God rest his soul. But they overpaying for guys who are way past their prime because of what they've done for you in the past is kind of insane. It's an insane thought. It's an insane process. PFF had the Niners linebacking core ranked at 10.
Yeah,
that's nuts to me.
Especially
that's darn good. Well, it's crazy because the Cowboys were ranked 2nd, and their best linebacker is off the field for half of a season every other year. I don't understand.
But they have the Wolf Hunter.
Yeah, but they have one of the worst passing defenses in the league. I don't understand how your linebacking core can be the best or a top 3 linebacking core when you're giving up 40 points a game. So this is a young group. They make their mistakes. They have errors, but I think they're highly undervalued and being essentially slept on. And I don't know how you could sleep on the Hotboyzz. So I think the league needs to watch out this year because they're coming. They're coming hard.
I think they're top 10. I don't know if they're ready to be in the top echelon of the top 5, but I definitely think they're the top 10. I think if they clean up the tackles and they make some more plays in stopping the run, if our run defense improves, I definitely think they're one of the top, if not the top linebacking core. I think they have the potential to be so. Dre Greenlaw's growth this year, Fred Warner, even more growth probably to an all-pro player. And then if Kwon Alexander can stay healthy, I definitely think they could be the top 5. They have all the ability. They have good backups. They have a strong group. They make plays on special teams. These guys are playmakers now. They're causing turnovers. And if they take it to the next level, then they'll definitely be top 5 next year. And then we can start talking about, is this one of the better linebacking cores that we've ever seen in the 49ers history? I know you brought that up, Alex. And I think that is a question for the future. I think if Dre Greenlaw can improve and Kwon can stay healthy, then they'll be mentioned in that. Because I think, the gold standard is still Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, especially as the two interior guys. That's the gold standard, and I think they have a ways to go to get there. But, something we need to talk about, I want to go behind the whistle.
Behind the whistle.
Because I want to talk about linebacker coach DeMeco Ryans. So, what do you guys think about DeMeco Ryans, Alex?
The big thing is I'm impressed with what he's done. He's only been coaching in the league for 3 years. He's only been in San Francisco for 3 years. He started as a quality control coach, took over in 2018, and I think you can see just by the way Warner has kind of developed during the time that DeMeco Ryans has been the linebacking coach, the inside linebacking coach anyway. The development that he has had, I think the addition of the pieces that we've added, that he's done a wonderful job of getting them coached up and getting them ready. The job he did with Dre Greenlaw last year, not just with his development as a player, but getting him ready to play at the level that he played at and having to switch positions from Sam to Will is a kind of the feather in the cap of the job that he has done with getting these linebackers not just prepared and understanding the game, but being able to play at a high level, adapt on the fly, and really hone in on the things that are important. Like it's hard. It's already hard enough as a professional athlete to play against the best competition day in and day out in a sport like football, where you're taking a beating, you're not always feeling 100%. Can you find the motivation to show up and do the things you need to do, and do it without complaining? The fact that he's got these young guys who are on rookie contracts, who are making big money, and are being asked to do things like Fred Warner step up and be the guy who's the signal caller. Dre Greenlaw, not only are you going to come in and you're playing Sam, now you're playing Will, because the guy that we brought in to fill out the linebacking core and bring the experience and the energy is on the sideline for half the season. It just goes to show kind of how the consummate professional he was as an athlete. I can't speak to it. I don't know when he was playing linebacker. I never really heard a negative thing about DeMeco Ryans when he was playing, but he's obviously brought some sort of professionalism and preparation and how to prepare to play a linebacker in the NFL in this defense at a high level. And I'm looking forward to see what he can do with the guys he currently has, this young core, and also to see potentially what he's going to do with his coaching staff going forward, because he might be a guy that they're grooming going forward to play a bigger role than just coaching the linebackers.
Yeah, I remember DeMeco Ryans as a really solid player for 10, 12 years, several-time Pro Bowl, several-time All-Pro. I believe it was with Houston, Cleveland, and Philadelphia were the main places he played. Now, in Philadelphia, he definitely learned how not to coach. He played for Chip Kelly. So then he played for the Browns. I don't know who the coach was, but it didn't go well. So when they picked him up, I think it was in 2017, I was pretty excited to hear that. He was a very good player. And I think, like Alex said, with the young guys that they have on their team, how well they're doing, I think it clearly goes to show that he's doing a good job of getting these guys ready to play every week, of improving them during the off season. He works well with Saleh, and anything you read says that DeMeco Ryan is on the fast track to becoming a defensive coordinator and maybe even a head coach one day. He's considered by a lot of people to be a rising star in the industry. He's only 3 years in. So I think that DeMeco Ryans is a fantastic linebackers coach. Now, is he just inside backers or is he all of them?
Inside backers.
Just inside. Okay. I wasn't sure. He does a darn good job.
That's sure. He was been referred to as coach since he played in college. And he would always think about strategy, like when somebody would call a defense, what should have actually been called or what he would have called in that situation. So he's been playing it out for a while. He met Kyle Shanahan when Kyle coached in Houston, and he also played for Robert Saleh. Saleh was one of the linebackers coaches in Houston. So there's your connection. He was gifted as being a coach. They said he could lead, he could communicate, and he can handle mental element of the fast-paced game. Alex alluded to the fact how he helped Fred Warner translate from college to the pros so fast. And he understands what it takes to be successful on and off the field, and I think that's what he brings to the table, is he can teach these guys from his own experiences. He played for 10 years for, a couple of different teams, so he can definitely, pick up and feel the things that they're going through, so he knows how to help them, lead them in a certain direction. So I like that D'Amico Ryans is a guy that is teaching these guys because he understands exactly what it takes to be successful in the NFL. And I'm curious to see, could he eventually be the replacement for Robert Saleh as defensive coordinator when Saleh eventually gets the head coaching job? That is a definite possibility, and maybe they're grooming him for that. From quality control coach in 2017 to inside linebackers coach now, he's definitely a fast-track guy. They think he's a really smart guy, and it's shown with the Hotboyzz. He's doing a good job. So D'Amico Ryans, somebody that we can watch during the season, and now we're more familiar with, who's teaching these great linebackers and coaching them along the way.
Make sure to tune in to the next 49ers Cutback podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Anchor, Google Pods, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to click the follow button so you won't miss an episode. You can always follow us on Twitter at 49ers Cutback. We will be back soon with another episode. Stay safe, and remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.